Hi folks, this is David here. I just wanted to give a quick rundown, jot some notes from my preparation. I've been preparing now for several months. As soon as this was announced, I started looking at the lake. One of the things that I really did was compile information. Some of the tools I like to use are Google Earth, any kind of USGS water data. Sometimes you get river flows if it's a river event. In this case of the reservoir, I've been following the reservoir levels closely. That really impacts how the fish are going to do. With Amistad, we're looking at a very slow rise, pretty much stable conditions. So that won't bunch the fish up on, say, the points or the channels necessarily. So it's going to make it a little bit more difficult to actually find concentrations of fish. And it kind of opens the playing field a little bit more, makes the targets become much more spread out, and makes the job of preparing just a little bit more difficult. You can see the file here of the information that I put together. Some of the things I really like to cover: water levels. As you can see here, water levels, not only historical but kind of the current trends. I like to take a lot of maps that have contours, imagery, and this is a good example of what I like to do. I take a map, and it might be a little hard to read here, but kind of what I try to do is pick out areas of the lake that I think look right. In this case, I'm looking at ditches, any kind of an area that funnels into a spawning flat. As these fish are going to be thinking about pre-spawn and getting ready to move that direction, they're going to be setting on those immediate places, just sitting ready to, as soon as they get a nice extended warming trend, especially around a full moon coming up in a couple of weeks, those fish are going to be looking to move through those corridors. So what I'm expecting is to try and find those little bends, the points, the ledges that are going to be right outside those areas in that little bit of deeper water where those fish are kind of setting up. So that's what I'm looking at. One of the things I did was look for where's the historical places on the lake where the fish typically spawn, or the tournaments this time of year are typically dominated at. And those are the kind of areas. Not only did I look at those areas, but then I took my mapping and I expanded it out to the rest of the lake, and I tried to look at areas that were like it, that might also hold fish. You can see here that I set a lot of lat and long. Basically, I'm setting waypoints to get started. My whole point with that is then I've got a plan of where to start. I can start looking for my structure. I can start looking for suspended fish around those areas, and try and find something. My first day of practice is solely dedicated to mapping, and in fact, I won't even have a rod in the boat. So that doesn't tempt me to actually get out there and fish. My point is to get around, get a really good feel of everything, find all the areas that I wanted to visit during practice, and then to go through and set waypoints. So I'm going to verify these, kind of try and pick out, okay, these are the ones I really want to hit, and prioritize from top down. And then during practice, I'll hit as many as I can, and so that way, even if I don't cover all of those, I have them set. Say during the tournament, I get a prevailing wind from an odd direction, and I can't get to where I want to go. I might look at my chart, and I might say, okay, I've got some areas similar to that I marked in practice here. I didn't get to fish them, but I'm going there anyways. And sometimes that's what you've got to have, especially in a multi-day event, especially by day 3 if you make it that far. So these are kind of some of my thoughts going in. Again, this is what I expect. I said, going into this, I don't expect the fish to be shallow. First of all, it's Amistad, and shallow is relative in very clear water. But I really expect we're probably looking at, that 20 to 40 foot depth of those fish where they're really starting to, stage up. And I'm going to be looking at those first areas that are at that depth with good structure that lead into nice spawning areas. Now, the thing that I will do with the water conditions being that they are, is that I'm going to look at a lot more subtle spots than just the obvious ones that would be affected by, say, falling water, where those fish would really pull back to on the major structure. I want to look at some of those minor details, the smaller ditches, the smaller troughs, the smaller ledges that kind of lead into some of these bigger flats, especially with some of that flooded trees, where those fish will kind of because they're so spread out right now, maybe I can find, you know, a couple of spots that aren't being targeted by everyone else. Trying to find something just a little bit different, and not so much for concentrations of fish, but what I do want to find is to have a couple of areas I feel I could go to where I know that I can find a quality bite when I need it. So these are the thoughts I've got going in. Wish me good luck. I hope that, you know, I don't have to adjust too much from this. I know that the weather trend is a little bit up and down right now. We're looking at temperatures anywhere from the 70s down to the 50s, and that makes for, you know, quite a variation during the tournament time. But tournament day is expected to be more in that upper 50s, low 60s, maybe even middle 50s. The wind forecast right now looks decent, but again, you know, I think being a week out from the full moon, I don't expect those fish to be moving up shallow to spawn. So I'm going to be targeting them mainly deep diving crankbaits, some heavy jigs, and big spinner baits, and a jerk bait. I'll really be working those quite a bit, and of course mixing in a swim bait where I have an opportunity. So those are my thoughts, and I'll visit back with you after the tournament, and we'll compare notes and we'll see how we ended up. So thanks.